It's 12:30, so and I can see we're on to like almost how many 80 people. So we can we can make a start, I think, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Okay then. Okay. So kia ora koutou katoa, and welcome to the first 2026 ARAMS webinar. And today, Dr. Karaitiana Tiuru will be speaking about a practical framework for implementing Maori AI and data governance and sovereignty within New Zealand organisations, founded in the findings of the Waitangi Tribunal's Y225 report. So I'd like to now hand over to Dr. Tiuru. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you. Kia ora koutou. It's nice to be here. I'm just about to hopefully share my screen and then we can get started. Sorry, a little bit. Okay, so so I'll just jump straight into this. So I always start off with a disclaimer when I do presentations. So this presentation was entirely written by me. I didn't use AI to write any context. And if I did, or if there's an image, then it'll be clearly stated as written by AI. And I did check the presentation this morning, and everything in this presentation is accurate as of today's date. Just noting that with AI, things can change so quickly. So this is up to date. I thought it was best to first of all talk about a research project I did with government agencies and government departments' use of Maori data sovereignty. So I did this through a number of different OIA requests, and I'm sure if you work in the government agencies, these are quite annoying. But so there was 31 government departments, and obviously the obvious ones were excluded for security reasons. So the GCSB, Ministry for Pacific Peoples, because I didn't see it having too much relevance here, and SIS. 6 Crown agents, the police, and the Independent Children's Monitor. So each of these organisations were asked these 5 questions. So this gave me the ability to analyse the data and get a really good indication of what's happening out there. And of course, this is from 2025. So the first question was, how does your organisation define Maori data as opposed to non-Maori data? Through this presentation, you'll see this is a key question. I also asked if the agents or the organisations had a data sovereignty or a data governance policy or strategy. Then I asked for a copy of their general data governance strategy or policy. Again, this is quite relevant because I wanted to find out whether government organisations held data in more higher, in a higher opinion than Maori data. I also wanted to know if organisations had tried to implement Maori data sovereignty principles or data governance. Again, over the years, I've heard a lot of people say that they've had issues with this, so this was a way to find out. How many FTE were allocated to Maori data practices? And then, of course, the usual questions: which countries is your data stored in, and who are your cloud providers? I think question 6 and question 7 have become a lot more relevant in the past few weeks. The war in Iran, we've seen data centers being targeted. So I mean, these are quite relevant now. And I think as data practitioners and information practitioners, we need to really seriously consider what's happening geopolitically and where our data should be. So there was 3 key definitions of Maori data. So we had the Y2252 report. So this is the comprehensive and progressive agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership e-commerce chapter. It's quite. I think this is the most relevant Maori data definition because it's from the tribunal. It's been mulled over. It's been considered by our most learned Te Ao Māori experts, by our legal minds. and of course by advocates and expert witnesses such as myself. We've got the Te Mana Rauranga Sovereignty Network definition and Te Kahui Rauranga Maori definition. Um, I guess, I mean, the key thing here is that they're all very similar. My preference is to use the Waitangi Tribunal because it's the Waitangi Tribunal. But again, they all say the same thing. So what we have here, so 16 of those agencies or organisations didn't have a definition for Maori data. There was 10 separate unique definitions. Then 5 used Te Kahui Rauranga. Interestingly, 3 agencies said that they used the Stats New Zealand definition, which didn't exist. Another 2 agencies referred to a Department of Internal Affairs document, which, by the department's own website, stated that the document shouldn't be considered, or stated that the document had been updated and rewritten. And 2 with Te Mana Rauranga. So the point here is we have at least 16 agencies or 16 organisations who don't identify the difference between Maori data and data. So we saw 28 organisations had 0.0 FTE allocated to Maori data governance. 9 government agencies made up 47.5 FTE. And quite surprisingly, the one entity had 15 FTE just for Maori data governance. Again, there's a huge gap here. This is a concern. We saw most of our data was New Zealand, Australia, but there's a few we've got data in other places as well, which again, as I said before, this should be reconsidered, especially considering data centres becoming a target in this modern day war. Overall, I think it's positive. I mean, the majority of our data residing in New Zealand and Australia. How many organisations have a data strategy or policy? So we saw 3 are still developing, but more of a worry is that 11 organisations didn't have a data strategy or data policy. Of course, I mean, this is a concern. I think just from an information management perspective, but also from a Māori data sovereignty perspective, this is very concerning. So out of the 24 government organisations, 16 considered Māori or considered Te Tiriti rights in their documentation. But then there was 8 government organisations who just did not mention Māori, didn't mention Te Tiriti at all when it came to data and information management. Looking at the different data governance frameworks. So we saw 14 government organisations have created their own. And so the most authentic Te Ao Māori frameworks that I read was from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade and from ACC. Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade were the government organisation that the claimants took to the Waitangi Tribunal with the CTPP PPA. So hence, I did expect they would have a very solid data governance framework based on Te Ao Māori. We often see that Te Kahui Rauranga Māori data governance model has been advertised and marketed as being for the Crown. Yet we saw only 3 Crown agencies are using it. One organisation stated that it was largely not applicable to their area. but yeah, there was a feeling it was too hard to implement. And again, I keep on saying of concern, but all of the Crown organisations ignored the Waitangi Tribunal recommendations. So, yeah. Sorry, that's a duplicate slide. Then we looked at the algorithm charter. So, of all the agents, of all the government organisations, 20 of them signed the outdated algorithm charter. But then the algorithm charter is very light on te tiriti and protections for Maori. So this is, yeah, again, I think this reinforces the fact that it's quite easy for an organisation to sign up to things like the algorithm charter, but not actually implement in real life. So I think it's just probably more of something to be aware of, and also noting that there's changes in policies, changes in government, changes in staff, which lead to that as well. We also know that when we still had the CRIs, Xero had implemented any sort of Māori data governance. But then about halfway through 2025, Plant and Food had a draft. And so I'm not sure where that's at the moment. Of more interest was looking at how Maori and iwi considered data. So this is just I'll just skip over this. So I'll go quickly over this. So of the Maori data and sovereignty experts that I could identify, only 2 had New Zealand-based email servers. 7 out of 10 had NZ domains, and only 1 individual had one fully sovereign website and hosting, including emails, and that was me. I identified 85 .iwi.nz domain names. So again, only 6 of those had sovereign sites hosted in New Zealand. 62, basically had everything hosted overseas. So there's I think there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of in the too hard basket for government, local agencies, and Māori and iwi. So putting all this into practice, Māori businesses, again, about 10% of Māori businesses use emails based in New Zealand, and 60% had preference for New Zealand domain names. Our national Māori advocate organisations, I won't name them, but again, they all had their data, their websites and databases hosted overseas. So the solutions for government, in my opinion, is we need to have a standardised, centralised governance platform or strategy in place where all government agencies can use the same strategy. We need to utilise the Y2252 Tribunal report, which is the following slides. We'll be doing that. And we need to treat data governance and sovereignty as a subsection or a theme of your everyday data and information management governance policies and strategies. What we've learned over the last 10 years, if you try and have a separate framework, or if a separate framework, you can run into problems when there's issues with your international best practice governance frameworks contradict the Maori frameworks. So the benefits for doing this, we're obviously going to see better consistency with data ontology. There's going to be, reduced FTE reliance, so you can reinvest staff time into other projects. I believe there'll be significant economic returns, especially when we start using AI more. And if we don't know what data we have, if it's not labelled properly, if we don't know what's Māori data, then we're going to spend a lot of time fixing that up. And increasingly, governance boards are asking questions around data and AI. So this is implementing a data sovereignty framework will help greater accountability. And of course, the environmental impacts, something that a lot of people don't think about. I mean, if we can reduce the the power usage for AI with our data, then I mean that's a good thing. Everyone wins, right? So the risks, there's some serious risks here if we don't do it. The obvious one for me is that Maori will continue to face inequities and bias. We will become invisible, and I've seen this happen already with local government data. So I'll just quick tell the story. So one of the larger tribes in New Zealand went to their local government, local council, and said, "Look, we need data about our tribe." And the council said, "Oh, sorry, but we don't have any data about, your land holdings, your investments, your interests." So the iwi, their first reaction was, "This is racist. You're just, you are, what's wrong with you? You obviously do have data about our iwi." But I suspect that from a data perspective, it probably just wasn't labelled. There was probably no way of finding or separating out that data. We also know, yeah, and I think it's those of us who are familiar with AI will know that it is, there's a lot of benefits with it, but there's also a lot of risks. The risks, for Maori, it's new digital colonization. For vulnerable people, it's inequities, health inequities, social harms. So yeah, another risk is the government could end up in the Waitangi Tribunal again. So there's already one claim. The Y3550 has been lodged regarding inequities experienced by Maori in the technology sector. So this is one claim. There's another claim that's been lodged, in regards to the government not doing enough to protect Maori with AI and data. But so I'll leave that one there. So the data governance solutions, it's a 5-step process. So these steps have been created over the past 10 years through a lot of trial and error, cost, heartbreak, and it's been widely consulted upon. So I'll go through each of these 5 steps on how you can create a Mātauranga Māori AI and data strategy. So again, built on the 2252 tribunal claim, the first part is to identify and build internal capability. So the first thing you need to do is have a cultural safety audit. So basically, this is just a process where you audit staff, look at your policies, practices, strategies, identify if anything's lacking a Te Tiriti perspective or a Te Ao Māori perspective. We've found that staff who undergo Te Tiriti training are much more aware and more cooperative than those who don't. It's also quite important that your staff who deal with Māori data should have a basic understanding of pronunciation of Māori language. And then for some people, maybe undergoing Māori engagement training. So this might be going to the marae for a one-day visit. It might be interacting with the local kapahaga group. There's a number of different ways you can do these things. And as part of that that safety audit, ensuring that your staff have an understanding of the 2252 claim. It's my recommendation, if you can, is to establish a Māori Data Sovereignty Governance Expert Advisory Committee. These are some key skills that I think, all members should have, or at least at various different levels. So obviously intimate knowledge of Te Tiriti and Waitangi Tribunal decisions, some familiarity with Māori data sovereignty. You should have at least one person with expertise in tikanga Māori and Mātauranga Māori. If you're a Crown organisation, and you might want to have a mana whenua representative, especially if you hold vast amounts of mana whenua data in your organisation. The same expert tikanga Maori should also would more than likely have an intimate knowledge of te ao Maori, including politics and marae, etc. It's important that I think everyone should have an understanding of data governance and AI, but then there should be at least one Maori expert who has the expertise. Having an understanding of privacy and intellectual property law is really important because we often deal with data, obviously crosses over those lines. And then I think, yeah, like any sort of governance group, someone in the organization who can make those decisions, and an expert in research ethics, which I think it's not as important, but it's something to consider. You need to audit the data that you have in your systems. So one aspect of this would be the jurisdiction. Where are your databases stored? What are your license agreements? Who owns the company? This is comes quite relevant when you're talking about things like the Cloud Act, privacy concerns. Do you have a data repatriation plan in place? Then you need to identify all your policies and procedures that are to do with your data, and then look at if you're using other people's data sovereignty principles, or you've created your own, just look at them and look at if they contradict the 12 privacy principles, and if they do, then talk to your privacy officer or maybe the privacy commission, and then just try get some advice. Can you change that? Can you get around it? So step two, this is defining and understanding what Maori data is and Maori data governance. So as I said before, the Waitangi Tribunal has defined this. So basically, it's Maori data is basically anything that has a whakapapa Maori, essentially. But but I think of more importance here is that Maori data is a taonga and subject to Maori governance. So this is quite important because further down here, this says that Maori data sovereignty is related to the principles, structures, accountability mechanisms, and legal instruments and policies through which Maori exercise control over Maori data. So this actually takes things a step further and talks about, it's not just te tiriti. This is other things. Which I'll discuss next. And the tribunal also said that algorithms should be open and transparent to avoid bias. So again, ensuring that your algorithms, you have a record of your algorithms and what they do is essential. So Maori data, it is a taonga. The tribunal has said it's a taonga. The High Court have referenced Maori data as a taonga as well. So this is just one perspective of Maori data. This is genetic data. So basically, we start at the top up here from our spiritual realms, and we come around to our collective ownership models of our marae, ancestors, tribes, sub-tribes, family groupings, and the individual. So it's quite different to a Western perspective. So digital data, same thing. We start with the spiritual aspects of data, and we come around to the collective ownership again. So the same as genetic data, but our spiritual realms change a little. So again, so I just want to touch on this. So I'm just going to skip this one. Yep. So when the tribunal talks about the principles, structures, and accountability mechanisms, so this is ensuring that Maori are part of the decision making, whether that's partnerships, Maori data governance experts on governance groups, or just ensuring that Maori are part of that decision making process. And then the emphasis is on to implement and follow um, a Te focused governance model. So here's one Te focused AI governance model. This uses the Waitangi Tribunal's Ho order principles. So again, I mean, you don't need to do this. It's just this is here for an idea. So step one, tino rangatiratanga, yeah, having Māori leadership and decision-making process at every step of the AI life cycle. Then the equity, making sure that the AI is equitable, making sure that you have free, prior, informed consent of the data, and that people are aware of what happens when the data goes into the AI and where it's stored, and everything else. Ensuring that once you've had Māori buy-in at each step of the AI lifecycle, make sure that that they're still there, being stewards, and that you treat the AI as a taonga. And then just overall, just making sure that tikanga is embedded as day-to-day practice. Another way of looking at this, if you're an AWS customer, basically this is their generative AI lifecycle, making sure there's Maori voice around each of those steps. So I guess, yeah, the key thing is making sure that right from the scoping, right from the very start, Maori should be involved and, yeah, be part of the ongoing improvements. So again, this is, yeah, part of the life cycle, making sure that you document the system's concept and make sure that objectives of Māori are documented as well. These are, yeah, again, I mean, if you're working with AI, these are probably just, yeah, relatively logical. I'll just jump over. So again, just, yeah, when you're creating algorithms, make sure that, you have a Māori view there. We've seen in the past different government organisations, ACC, Ministry of Social Development, Corrections, have been in the media for having algorithms that were biased against Maori and women and Pacific people. So if you have a Maori as part, at the start of the algorithm life cycle, hopefully you can, avoid those issues. But also use the training data, make sure it has Maori data in it, and that Maori, a part of that, the testing, because it's quite often a Te Ao Māori perspective will see things that a non-Te Ao Māori perspective won't, and yeah, basically, yeah, that will stop negative outputs. It's also good to test when you're doing the AI deployment, to test or create, yeah, trials with Māori communities, and then to, yeah, carefully document any risks or any issues that Māori communities come up with. I strongly recommend using AI impact assessments, algorithmic assessments, and privacy impact assessments, and ensuring that they're customized to include a Te Ao Māori perspective and a Te perspective. I'm not familiar with any publicly available assessments that will do this, but your in-house team should be able to assist with that. So this is, yeah, I'm just going to jump into here. So when the tribunal talk about legal instruments, so each government organisation have their own legal instruments, so you need to consider those. It's important that every data governance framework is bespoke to your organisation. Also to consider that there's pieces of legislation which apply to everyone, and then there's legislation that's specialised to other people. Here's just a rundown of some legal instruments that you should be aware of. I think everyone's familiar with Te Tiriti, but there's the Māori Language Act, the UNDRIP. There's the original Waitangi Tribunal claim about Māori knowledge and information is the Y262 claim. The Supreme Court decision that said that tikanga Maori is New Zealand's first common law is quite important, as is the legal personhood legislation. There's discussions internationally that an AI could be granted legal personhood based on the mountain, the river, and the forest. So other important legislation to consider, um, yeah, the biometric processing privacy code, especially if you're using biometrics or facial recognition technologies. Um, yeah, so I'll just skip over these for time. So the tribunal talks about policies which exercise control. So um, some ideas is to make sure that you have email statements. If you're using AI for your email, make sure you have statements saying that it's AI generated or not. Um, Clearly identify anything that's generative, that uses generative AI. And if you have a website using an AI chatbot, it needs to be really clear. We've seen lots of examples of elderly Maori becoming friends with chatbots, thinking they're humans, and then or replacing human values for chatbot values. It's probably not so applicable to government organisations, but if you're doing new research, make sure that there's co-ownership, shared IP, and if you are using Mātauranga Māori, that the IP remains back with the Māori groups. It's good to have generative AI policies if you're using Mātauranga Māori. So the key rules are if you're going to use generative AI, don't use it for translating Te Reo Māori, use a human. And yeah, for any art, use a human to create art, not the AI. So we know that the AI is basically stills data. So it's, don't use AI for creating Māori language content unless you have that permission of the knowledge holder. So yeah, and that's basically, I think that's almost impossible to do that. So so don't do that. But yeah, anything that's considered tapu, don't add it to the AI. Photos of deceased people, marae, carvings, whakapapa. These are all things that we consider tapu, so it should never be added to the AI. I'll skip over this one. It's just a quick example of a policy disclaimer there. But, so engaging with Māori is the third step. Now, it's important that to understand there's not one Māori worldview, right? So we are very different people. We come from multiple different islands, multiple different over multiple different generations. And I also like to point out that post colonization, Māori weren't defined as an individual race and called Māori. We were defined by our ancestors, by our iwi, by our hapu. Sometimes the question I always get asked is who do I consult with? What Māori groups do I consult with? So here, just some examples, but as government agencies, these should be familiar: iwi, hapu, marae, whānau. There's the non-iwi urban Māori groups, land trusts. If you're not sure of who the kaitiaki of the data is that you have, these are just three suggestions here. So Māori Maps will tell you who the hapu or the iwi are of a certain area. The Directory of Māori Organisations, again, it's a really good source of information there. And if you're a local government agency dealing with land, Māori Land Online website is a great assistance. So data labels, I'm just going to skip over this pretty quickly. So it's important to label all the data that you have. So from a Te Ao Māori perspective and data governance perspective, there's three high-level taxonomies that you should be aware of. So tapu. So this is data that's sacred and should only be ideally should only be New Zealand based where feasible, and you should be consulting the kaitiaki on that. Noa data, so anything that's anonymized, anything that's just in the general public, is considered Noa. And consultation, you probably don't need to consult on that. And then the Rahui is don't digitize or publish it, and it will require in-depth consultation. One example, so Radio New Zealand archives have a lot of footage or audio recordings of whai kōrero and at tangi, so that would probably be considered the Rahui and shouldn't be digitized and put into AI. Existing data sets are already out there. The National Library, there's Glam Maori metadata label sets. Obviously, you've got your own, some organizations have their own data dictionaries, and then, create your own. If you're creating your own, it's best to engage with Maori to make sure you've, getting the labels right. So some other ideas, some baseline labeling here. So, whakapapa, mātauranga, health, land. These, does the data require any special cultural considerations? Did the kaitiaki of the data say, well, you should do a karakia if you're going to be, doing things with this data? Or it's just, obviously where the data is stored, so you can, identify where it is. And then some data might have a kaitiaki group that needs to be consulted. So these are just some ideas to get you started. I'm just going to skip over this. So, as I said before, it's best to look at creating your own data governance principles. What we've learned over the years, it's best to create your own principles and plans, and then to incorporate them into your existing data governance frameworks. Look at your internal organization values, whether that's in a strategy document or elsewhere, and incorporate those values into your data governance principles. And and also always remember data is a taonga, and treat it like a physical taonga. So a lot of organisations don't do that. Just in summary, this is just these are frameworks that have been created by other organisations. ACL doesn't exist anymore, but their framework was quite good. Other journeys use a whakapapa tech stack, which is really amazing to look at the tech stack. AWS worked with Maori leaders and created their framework. Catalyst have one. Crop and Food I talked about before. Deloitte have their own sort of Maori data governance framework. Microsoft New Zealand with Te Tumu Pairoa created a really amazing data governance framework. Ngāti Toa with iTeam here, Vodafone. I mean, these, I guess these are here to say that people are creating their own frameworks. They're doing it on their own, and they're creating them as bespoke frameworks. We even just last year a forensic family data sovereignty framework was created through the University of Otago and multiple Ngāi Tahu Marae. This is more about data about deceased and bones that are dug up. This is another example from an iwi perspective. So that they've used their mātauranga Māori to create their data governance frameworks. So this, again, very bespoke to them. So it's just another way of thinking about how your organisation could create their own governance framework. This is the plant and food framework. It starts at the wānanga. So what this does, it involves Māori at the very first step from the wānanga. setting the expectations, the full prior informed consent. It looks at how they protect the data, how throughout the whole life cycle. Rangitane also have their own data sovereignty principles framework. Again, this is bespoke to them. This looks at their internal structure, their ancestral obligations, their rangatiratanga, spirituality, down to being guardians of their own data. And each one of these principles has a long explanation of how they do it. Kia ora. So that's the framework. I'm just going to take questions.
Oh, Kia, thank you. That was incredibly interesting. I'm sure I'm giving us a lot to think about. So have we got some, well, actually one question that's come up in the chat is, would we be able to have make available a copy of the slides?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
if
yeah, I'll send that through to you after this. Yeah.
that's great, thank you. And I should have managed to do that. Okay. Yep. So, and one is a question I've got here. It said that you stated all of the Crown ignore the Waitangi Tribunal recommendations, noting that
Mhm.
Y252 e-commerce did not have specific recommendations on MDG or Māori data, but reiterated Y262 findings and recommendations on protecting
Yeah.
Mataranga Māori. What did you mean by this statement, basically?
So
Please.
so the report. I mean, they had a number of findings, and so those findings turn them into recommendations. So basically, all Crown organisations that were surveyed ignored the fact that Maori data. They didn't say, um, you know, we've we didn't look at Maori legal instruments. We didn't. They didn't reference that tribunal finding, whether it was Y262 or 2522. There was a number of key findings which government agencies have not considered or mentioned in any of their data governance documents.
Okay. Right. Has anybody else got any questions that they would like to ask, either in the chat or you know, audibly?
Kia
Ah,
ora, kia ora tātou, ko ki tūna te marataku unga, he kaimahi ahau I te wharepakotaka o Alexander Turnbull. So, yeah, kia ora, my name's Kat, I'm one of the Euro curators at the Alexander Turnbull Library. And I've been spending a bit of time before bringing collections in to look at our Māori data practices, the way that we collect, how we hold that data, the accountabilities, and using the research that was done on the COVID-19 app as sort of a way to create sort of a maturity model so that we can assess ourselves over time. And this is just for within my team. I don't have control over the rest of the organization, and I also don't have the capacity, mental or emotional, to deal with that,
Yeah.
especially in this time. But one problem that we do have is that we know that bots is sort of from different sides. We know that bots are scraping our data. We know that we already have digitized whakapapa, images and online descriptions, and I guess behind the ball and trying to figure out how to apply Māori data governance, I guess, strategy to information that we already have out there. I know that the bots are constantly changing the algorithms so that even if we do, make changes, they will probably just get around them. And I'm just sort of wondering, I mean, even though it might be in some ways tokenistic because of those problems, do you think it's worth, from a curatorial perspective, making it clear, like in our deeds and all those other legal policies, that donors do not consent to AI or,
Mhm.
without, accessing or using that data and that taonga without permission? Like, is that even worth putting that in there?
Yeah.
I'm just struggling with this a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I think, I mean, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, it's just too late. What's this phrase? The horse has bolted." But yeah, I say, well, I mean, it hasn't bolted. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff which is too late to claw back, but there's still a whole lot of data which hasn't been put out there yet. So I think we just need to focus on the data that's still private and the kaitiaki of that data, especially for your institution. The kaitiaki should be fully informed about what could happen, what does happen once that data gets to the internet, it gets scraped, goes to the wherever it goes. And I think because there's a lot of misunderstanding, people don't understand that that's what actually happens. And so a good example, a certain university went to an iwi and said, "Oh, we want to scan all of your knowledge resources that you've written out, but we'll put it on the internet, but we'll only put it on the computer will be in our university." And they misled the iwi. So the iwi people who they were talking to thought, "Oh, it's safe. It just sits at the university." But as we know, it's a web server, right? So the data goes everywhere. So I think as long as we're providing the full context of what that data is, then I think people should be able to decide if it goes out or not. And as I said, it's not too late. Well, it's not too late for some data, but so yeah.
Cool. Ngā mihi, thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Kat. Now, there's a couple more questions in the chat. So this is from John. It said, will this will lead to a great call on Maori to develop data sovereignty capability to advise labelling. How will this demand be resourced?
Sure. Okay. Well, I think every organisation is a good question. Thanks, John. I think every organisation, every data and information management professional needs to label data, whether it's Maori data or not Maori data. I think it has to be part of a business as usual, expense or resourced as BAU. But what we're seeing internationally is organisations who don't label their data ends up costing them more in the long run. So I think it's probably a case by case issue. I think in the ideal world we could provide labels, examples, but but again, when we do things like that, I mean, it's usually we usually voluntarily do that, and there's a lot of other things, taking preference at the moment, but.
And we have another question in the chat. This is from Richard Foy. So when you state that Maori data is te Teanga and subject to Maori governance, were you wanting to emphasise this as an addition to Article 2 of Te Tiriti?
Yeah, so I think I mean, the Article 2 says, it's the same thing. We're just reiterating that Te Tiriti obligation, that Te Tiriti right there.
And John's added a comment. He says he asks because we develop, Maori data governance, Maori will hold more data that will be derived from many sources.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I guess, I see what you. So another way to this would be working in partnership with Maori communities whose data you have. But I get you now. I think ideally, there'd be the costs and resources should be shared. But again, I think that's probably up to the individual organisations, and there might be different Te Tiriti obligations on organisations when. I think it'd be a case by case basis.
Anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask either through the chat or in person? Nope. Okay. 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 Right. In which case, I'll just say thank you very much to our speaker today. I think a really awesome presentation. And yeah, okay. So I'm reading the chat and like, oh heck, okay. Yeah. Okay, John just adds, you might want to add this to your recommendations on developing data governance. Okay.
Yep, I think I will.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank Dr. Tauru for his wonderful webinar today. And thank you very much for everyone for coming. We were actually at capacity. We have a capacity of 100 and we have people who are unable to get in. So yes, I will sort out about the recording. And if you'd all like to join ARANS, it will be available in our next newsletter. So real incentive there to join. After that, we will make it available on our website. So thank you very much for coming. And yeah, I'll let you know about the next one. So thanks. Thank you very much.